What's up, everybody? It's Mike B with Bombero Bus VW, and today I'm going to take a look at an H case that I recently used and see if the H really stands for horrible. Because nobody likes the H case, and I'll show you the reasons why. But it's sitting inside the barn there, so let's go take a look at it. But before I get started, I'd like to make a fair case for the H case, pun intended. And what you need to know, especially if you're new to the air-cooled VWs, is there's a ton of them out there. I believe they were made 68 through 69 and were intended to be a 1500. So of course, if you take a case in which the cooling capacity and everything else was meant to be a 1500, and then you slap dual port heads on it and make it a bigger CC, it probably isn't going to handle that well. So in fairness, we need to understand that the H case wasn't intended for much of what we see it being used for today. And that it has a brother, the B case, which is in this 1679. I'm pretty sure they're the same. The H5 in the B case is the same, just the B was meant for the bus. And here we see one that has ran fine since we rebuilt it as a 1679 in this car. Now, let's go look at the H case that's over there. So here it is. This is the H case that I ran for a little while as a 1600 in my 65 Bug. If you watch this channel, then you know I bought that 65 Bug as a shell. This wasn't the original engine that came in it, but basically was a core that was sitting there, and I went ahead and grabbed it too. Refreshed the top end, ran it as a 1600, and I loved it. I'll tell you the reasons I quit using it after a while, because first I want to prove to you that this is an H case. It's an H5. So let's do a quick rundown of what people dislike about the H case. Number one, they don't like the metal. It's supposed to have a smaller amount of aluminum in it. It's still magnesium, but has a smaller amount of aluminum in it than the later cases. Supposedly that makes it more brittle and prone to cracking after heat cycles, especially right here on the number 3. Number 2, the oil galleys. If I had another later case here beside it, you could definitely see the difference in the size. These are smaller, and that is throughout the case. All the oil galleys are smaller. Number 3, it is a single relief case. Instead of the dual oil relief that you see on the later cases, you only have one here. Single relief case, less desirable. Number 4, they're notorious for pulling head studs and cracking right here where the head studs go into the cylinder bore. So that goes back to the inferior metal and not being able to handle the activity of the heads. What I would like to talk about is the solution for the problems I just discussed. So basically, the case savers. Now this already has case savers along the bottom, but people say, hey man, the H case isn't that bad. It will pull head studs, but all you gotta do is put case savers in them. So the bottom one on this case, on both sides, has the case savers. And I have to admit, when I pulled these head studs out, none of them were loose. I don't see any shredded out threads there. But what it doesn't have, and what you can do, is put case savers along the top as well. And it doesn't have the deep well stud right here on the number 3. If you don't know what that is, on this case, the head stud that goes here is the same length as the rest of them. Well, the better idea is to have it be longer, and instead of threading in right here, it goes deeper into the case and is threaded in up here, so that basically when this case half is trying to pull itself apart from, you know, the crank going in opposite directions, it has a deeper anchor point. The stud has a deeper anchor point than pulling from right here, which tends to crack this area out here, and doesn't have it on this case, but that's another solution for the H case. So on the oiling issue, what are some solutions you can do is you can create better flow. Here's how. This came as a 1500 and it has the smaller oil cooler that goes inside the shroud here. Well, the bigger one goes out here in a doghouse, and there's an adapter you can put for the bigger oil cooler, and I did that in a previous video, and convert this into a doghouse style oil cooler. More capacity, better cooling potential. Now you can open up this case. I've never done it, but the oil galley's in here, and there's a lot of information out there on it. Can be drilled bigger to have more flow. One thing I do like is to run oil sumps on the bottom for more capacity, and however you can do it, get your case full flowed and running to an external oil filter. You can either tap this case for full flow, or there are pumps that will provide full flow and feed to an external oil filter. All of those are going to greatly improve the flowing capacity and oil cooling of these engines. Okay, enough about that. Now we're to a place where I have to admit a secret I've known all along and am just now gonna show you. And if you look and you have good vision, you should be able to see that crack that goes right across that window there. Yep, it's a very small hairline one, and it comes out and goes into where the head stud sits. So, surprise! You might be wondering, well, why didn't you tell us this from the beginning? Because the point is, the information about the H case is the same, especially for newer people. You're going to find these. Now, the bigger thing is that I knew about that. I spotted it when I got this for free, which is why I took it, and we took it apart. And I spotted that. But you know what I did? I still built a 1600 out of it and ran it in my bug until I could build something bigger. Number one, because I'm a risk taker. Number two, to experiment. I saw that and I didn't know, hey man, I mean, is that gonna, can I do this? Is this even possible? Is that just gonna blow up? There's only one way to know, so I ran it. And we're finally to a point that I looked forward to, where I would one day pull the heads off again and see if that's gotten any worse. And it hasn't. And I drove the car hard to keep up with modern day society. So, you know, I'm not saying that this is okay, because some people are going to tell me, what in the world is wrong with you running that? But I just gave you the reasons why. So there you go. That's why it happened to this H case. Basically, the myth turned out to be true. And it's surprising that it didn't happen here where this one gets hot. I don't know why it happened there, but it did. So there you go. This H case is cracked. I would never represent that and rebuild it and try to sell it. It's for my personal boneyard now. And who knows if one day I had a little buggy to run around the yard in, or just locally up and down the road, I might throw it back together, but you know, just can't rely on it. But don't forget, in fairness, that thing was mistreated. That case was never intended for that. And so is it the case's fault? That's for you to decide. And keep in mind, over here on the B cases, those were for buses. So if you get a hold of one of those, it could be even in worse shape than the H case, because if it wasn't a bus, it had to work twice as hard to push all that weight around. And however many miles are on it, or definitely harder miles than what came in the H case on a bug. Even though this one seems to be an example of a B case that we rebuilt, didn't find any flaws, and is kicking it down the road with a 1679 in it. So do we have our answer in the end? I'd say no, because it's subjective. If you want to be period correct and build a 1500 or lower, there's nothing wrong with your H or B case, and if you inspect it and it seems good to go. Other than that, I probably wouldn't use it for a bigger build, because look, if you've got to drill out the oil galleys and tap the threads for and put K-savers for the head studs, and convert it to a doghouse oil cooler. Is it even really still an H case? And then besides that, you still have a single relief case that you're working with. So again, the answer is subjective, but this is information especially for newer people to understand if you're going to get into this. So I think I'll call that a wrap. Thanks for hanging out with Bombero Bus VW. If any of this helped you, don't forget to like and subscribe. But no matter what, dub daily and drive them. I'll see you on the next one.